Hello everyone. So we can all agree that building a website header can be very tricky sometimes, especially if it is a multi-row header and you need to position things differently on the mobile breakpoint. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to effectively build a multi-row header without having so much duplicated elements, especially the navigation. This is a multi-row header. Let's take a look at the layout. So we have the navigation at the last row. Actually, it's a 3-row header. So when you want to build your header, you have to understand how many rows does it have. You have to think of it in terms of rows. So this is a 3-row. We have the top bar is the first row, and we have the middle row, and then we have, that is the second row, we have the third row. Then we have the navigation. Then on the mobile breakpoint, we have 1, 2, 3 also. Now notice the difference. On the larger breakpoint, the navigation is on the last row, but on the mobile breakpoint, the navigation is in the second row. And what do we have here? We have these contact information moving from the second row to the third row on mobile. And you see how the navigation hamburger is placed, but the first row, there are no changes. And then another thing we notice is that the search is different. You know, it's just an icon. So let's take a look at how this was done initially, because this is actually a website that is almost finished. And what I'm doing here is to come in and fix this header to make it more effective, you know, to give it a more effective layout. Now, this is the layout. This is how it is in the structure panel. So what we have here is, this is the last row. And that last row has a navigation. You see the nav nestable. Now, we also have a second row that is hidden on the desktop. So if you see it grayed out like that, you know that it is hidden on that breakpoint. So we're going to go to the breakpoint that it is showing, which is here, and we find out that we have another navigation. So we have 2 navigation. Now, one thing to note is this navigation are exactly the same on both breakpoints. They are exactly the same navigation. That means that if you want to make changes to the navigation, let's say it was not a dynamic navigation, granted some of these are dynamic, but if it wasn't dynamic, then you have to make changes on both of them. And even if it were to be dynamic, you are introducing extra DOM content. You have it because navigation contains a lot of DOM elements. So when you start duplicating it, even if you do display none, those DOM elements are going to still count. So what we want to do is to see how we can take this from 2 navigation and multiple sections to something simpler. Now, the first thing I want to correct here is, if you take a look at the section, you can see that it still has the section tag. All of them have the section tag, section, section, section. Now, when you're building a header, one of the things you don't want to do is to use sections to build your header. Now, I'm not saying you cannot use the section element in Bricks, but what I'm saying is you should change the tag to something else, a div, most likely. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to start on hiding things that were hidden on different breakpoints. So this was set to display none. I'm going to unhide that. And then when we go to this breakpoint, you can see that this is set to hide also. I'm going to unhide that. We want to see where everything is at. I'm going to go ahead and expand everything and check for items that have been hidden on different breakpoints. So you can see that this logo was hidden on this breakpoint because it's grayed out. How do I know that? By just looking, it's grayed out. So on this breakpoint, so we actually have 2 logos also in the header, and one was hidden. So we're going to go to under miscellaneous. We should see display. Okay. And this div here is also hidden. I'm gonna go to content, and also what else is hidden? This is hidden. All right, so I think we may have revealed all hidden items. Let's go back here and see. So basically what I want to see if there's anything grayed out. So nothing grayed out on any of these breakpoints. So we want to see everything so we can know how to reorder this. So basically what we have now, this header the first row, we don't have a problem with it. The second one is basically here. Now, so what we want to do is to consolidate these two. So what I have here is we want to take, now we have a logo here and we also have a logo here. And let me collapse everything now. I want to use this div as the primary div for the layout because that is the mobile div. And let's see. Okay. Yep. That's the mobile div. So we want to move things. We want to start moving things around. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to move this in here, the top row. But what I want to do is to place a block instead of using the section. Of course, we can change this. We can always change this to a div. Okay, I've changed that to a div. So what happens is nothing except that if you had section specific styling, they wouldn't be applied. So you need to apply what you need to, the styling that you really need to apply. Okay. I'm going to add a block. Why am I using a block? I need a full width. The reason I need a full width is because we're going to remove all the paddings from the section. Okay, so I'm going to go here, layout, and the padding left and right is not there, which is what I want. So let's see. Okay, so you can see that block is taking up the full width. That block will act as our inner section per se, not exactly a section element, but to give us the gutters. So I'm going to add using CSS on the side. So I'm going to add the gutter to this. And I'm going to place a container in there. Now, this already has a container. So I'm going to move that container inside there. And we have this color. What I will do here is I'm just going to go check for what that color is. Okay, so we can see it's var secondary. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy that and come here and background color. Or perhaps it's already here, secondary. Okay, I'm going to call this my row 1, and I will delete this. What did it have again? It had 8 pixels of yep, top and bottom. So we're going to put that 8. Okay. And let's see, any other styling we need to be aware of? Not really. Not really. So we're going to take that off and let's compare. Now there's a gap at the top here that is coming from the head, this section. So we're going to remove that. And I think we need to remove the gap here also. All right. Let's take it away completely. Now, so we have what we have here is similar to what we have here. So we are done with that. Let's go and see if we have our gutter applied properly. Yes, even on lower breakpoints, we have that gutter. Next, we want to do our second row, which is this one. So we want to make the second row look like the third, this row. We want to make this row look like this. So let's start. It's still supposed to be a block. So what I will do is, if I right click and convert it to a block, because a block should be full width, making that block, we say this is row 2. These 2 divs, we want to place it inside a container. So all the content, the rows are acting as the primary outer section, you know, outer container, but we need inner containers. So for this, we have the container that is an inner container. For all of them, we'll need the same thing. So I'm gonna put a container there. Now let's see what was the layout here. So we want to copy the layout here. No, not necessarily, but let's clear out that layout. I'm gonna clear the layout out. We don't need that. We need layouts here. So what we want here is, we want it to be like that. Let's move this in first. And we want it to be a space between. So let's do it like this. because the navigation I want to use is actually this one and not this one. So what I will do is we want to replicate this. So we're using breaks too. We can select everything and copy, or let's just copy this container, all right, and paste here. All right, now I'm going to move that all the way up. Yep. Then for this container, we're going to delete everything that is here except the navigation. So I'm going to delete everything that is here. But before I delete that, I want to copy out this icon. I'm going to copy that mobile icon and place next to this one. All right, so we have that. And then we're going to delete this container. Yep, let's delete that. And we're going to delete the logo. So, and this div is for the navigation. The menu wrap, if you take a look at this, we have a review element here, and that review element is in this other section, which is placed next to the navigation. So I'm going to copy that review element. The reason I'm not moving them is that I still want to reference how it looks. That's why I'm not moving things. And I want to place it just beside the navigation. So this div doesn't serve any useful purpose. So we're going to move this outside of it, delete this div, and then we're going to paste that code there. And since the code is side by side, we want to make sure that, okay, yeah, that is good. It doesn't show in the, it renders only in the front end, so it's not going to show in here. Now, it's very important at this point to start naming things, because it makes it really difficult to know what div you want to select without looking at the screen. So what is this? This is contact information, and this is, so under search we have okay, and this. So why do we need to group that like that? We don't need to nest it that way. We already have it here. Okay, so I'm gonna move this and this. So I think that they are it's unnecessary to nest it like this. So I'm gonna just call this add or account, and this is already a card, so we don't need to name that. Okay, so what I want to do is to move these outside those. Let me just place them outside first. And I'll delete this. I don't think I need that. And the search should have, the two search should be wrapped together. Want them to group them. You want to group them together. So I'm going to move that and count in the middle. Yep. And this should have that. Okay. So this second row, we didn't give it a gutter. So let's go in and give it a gutter. And that second row is basically going to be the white color. So let's give it that background, black and white. But notice, now because of the way it looks here, I think this should be its own row, this color, this the navigation, row, this should have its own row. So instead of having this container and this container, we want to move this into a separate row. So let's add, I'm just going to duplicate this row 2 and call it row 3. So let's go in and delete this from this row, and inside this row we're going to delete this. Okay. So we have row 3, which is going to be this grayish color. Let's go and take that color from here. put it on row 3. Let's look at what we have so far. All right. So we have been able to, duplicate what we have, what is going on here. Okay, so something was removed there at that breakpoint. Okay, so you can see we have similar thing, except that there's an icon here. So at this breakpoint 991, we actually want to hide the bigger search. So I'm just gonna go, and I prefer using custom CSS mostly. Or if you don't want to use custom CSS, you could just go into the style panel, the layout, under miscellaneous, because there's some elements you wouldn't see display property here. Go under miscellaneous, display none. All right. So we see on mobile, we don't want that big, but on the desktop, we don't want the small search either. So I'm just going to say the big one was search desktop, and this is search mobile. So search mobile, we don't want to display it. I mean, we could use media query, but I just want to go the maybe easy route. But on these breakpoints, we need it to show. So we're going to display a block. We could use media query instead of hiding one here and showing the other. One way we could do that is to just say go to. That is why custom CSS is good. We could use so we could just say add media main width, or we could just use the new more modern, if the width is less than or greater, greater than 991 pixels, then hide it. So display none. Did it work? Sorry, roots. Yeah, I make that mistakes a lot of times. So now when we go to 991, it's going to show. So you see, that's much better. But this is why we encourage people to learn how to write CSS instead of fumbling around. Here we could also see that we don't have the gaps that we had here. So let's see what gap value was that. We had space S for both of them. So let's go back to this and just put that gap there. Okay, I don't really think we need a row gap, but let me just place it there in case things wrap around. Okay, I think we have so we want to establish that we have our, now this was supposed to be beside this on mobile. See, so this is one of the reasons this was done in multiple rows. So how do we deal with that? So the hamburger lives in the third row. Okay, the hamburger lives in the third row, but we need it in the second row. Now the hamburger is usually inside the nav nestable elements, so it can open the navigation, but you can always move it to where you want. So if I collapse this, I can move this hamburger to just before. Let's go. You can see just before the navigation. I can move it there, but if you move it, it's not going to work. It's not going to open the navigation. But for it to open the navigation, you have to give it this class, brxc-nav nested. That is the class for the nav nested element. So you want to give it that class so that it will target that nav element. That is, because it is outside that nav element. So if you want to move the toggle to somewhere else, you need to reference the nav nested element using that class in this toggle selector. So it says copy the element ID you want to toggle and paste it in the CSS selector. They should have said copy the element selector, not ID. It doesn't have to be an ID. So we're going to go ahead and delete this. Yep, we don't need that again. And what was this? Yeah, we're going to delete that. Now let's go to mobile. Now we'll go to mobile. We see that something is not quite right. You can see that we're supposed to have it like this, but this is this contact information and it is styled differently. It's the same thing, but on this breakpoint, it was styled differently. So what we're going to do is, since we want it to be like this, and it has a different color from this, how can we deal with that? It's already inside a container. And this container, is what defines the site width. So the only way we can do that, we could do it in other ways to move it to the second row and give it, but that will determine using some really complex CSS rules like display content. We want to move, that means we're going to add display content here, and we're going to add display content here, and then we're going to change the order of this, and we're going to make it 100% to wrap around. That is going to be a bit complex. So in some cases, it is okay to duplicate certain things. So in this case, I would opt for simplicity if I were building this site for myself, but because I'm editing it for someone else, I want it to be easy for the person to understand. So I'm going to duplicate this row, and I'm going to call this row 3 mobile. And in that row, the only thing we're going to have is this contact info. So we're going to delete every other thing. Now that row, so I'm going to make this centralized. So when we get to that row, we have just that element. Okay, it has a padding up and down. So we're going to give it that padding. Now, I think that padding should just be from all the way up here, higher breakpoints, so that when we come here, it's settled. Now, at this breakpoint, we want to hide the contact info. Okay, so we are hiding that contact info. We want to hide it from less than or equal to 991. So let's just go. We could just write that CSS here. So at this point, we will not see it. And now at that point where we don't see it, we want to spread these things out. You can see how it's spread out. Okay. So we want to spread this out. So what are we spreading? We are using this, and we're going here to say space. These breaks have not resolved all this. This is supposed to be, it's supposed to be, turn 90 degree because it's horizontal. And if I go out and come back, sometimes it corrects, but this is not okay. See, space between. Look at how it looks. Okay. Now, problem is space between just spaces everything out. So what do? I'm going to select the logo and give it a right margin of auto, so it pushes this that other way. The second row, that color was supposed to be that ash color. All right, so by the time we get here, it's distinct enough, and we still need a gap up and down. Okay, so it's white on the desktop. Okay, so this is white here, and here it is different. Okay, so we have it white here. This third row is for mobile, therefore it's not supposed to show. None. And we come here and it shows up. All right, what happened to our second row gap padding? We need a padding up and down. Okay, so we have this. Yep, I think that's it. Yeah. So we're referencing it with how it's supposed to look. And that's it. Of course, there are some styling, that needs to be taken account of, like this white, but it's the layout that I'm most interested in. So let's collapse this and see if there's so you see we have row 3 mobile. Now you notice, because I'm using custom CSS to hide this, it is not grayed out. I just wish that the builder could do more by making sure that things detect the same way it would detect things when you're using the panel. Because if I were to be using these settings, the display none settings here, it will actually gray it out, but it couldn't detect and gray it out here. So I wish the bricks would do more about things like that. So one more thing is that the reviews here, we should have hidden it also on the lower breakpoint, because it's actually not showing up in the lower breakpoint. So let's select that. Let's select that code, and we're basically supposed to apply the same. Actually, if we had a class that just says this is what we want to hide on, we want to hide it on mobile. For example, what do we hide? I can't remember. Let me just write it. Display none. So if we save that, then we should have we should have that hidden. Okay. So yeah, so we've been able to take that, and we still have the same layout. So yeah, so that's it. So what did we do? We were able to change remove the sections from the header and use one single overall wrapper, and then we're able to place this. Normally sections come with the gutters, but we didn't have those gutters here. Instead, we moved the gutters to all the rows. All the rows had gutters, and then to constrain them to the width of the site, we had to put containers inside of them. So effectively, we have reduced the DOM element. We're able to use just one navigation. So this is basically how the final product looks. And then we go to the mobile breakpoints. This is how it looks. And by the way, this uses the Mega Menu Pro, so if you want to check it out, you could check it out also. All right. I hope you learned something here. Until next time, have a great day. Bye.